Are you following Super Rugby Pacific? Stick around, I'll share my insights to round 14. Hey everyone, it's Coach H here, and you've found Inspired by Union, a channel where I discuss Southern Hemisphere rugby. Let's dive right in. Well, week 14 of Super Rugby Pacific, and there's still movement to be had on the ladder. The top four jostling for positions, fighting for home quarters and semis, and the middle four jostling for positions, fighting to stay there. Chiefs versus the Hurricanes. Pretty lackluster performances from both these sides last week, as I'm sure they both had an eye fixed ahead on this fixture. Chiefs versus the Hurricanes. Pretty lackluster efforts from both of these sides last week. I'm sure they had an eye fixed to this encounter in Hamilton. Both these sides are going to go all out and try and gain a home quarter and semi at a minimum. Big changes as both sides roll out their best versions available for this week. For the visitors, Devin Flanders replaces the skipper and earns his 50th cap, as the Canes will look to rely on the experience of Perenara and Barrett. A settled Chiefs side has it all to play for this week, and after incoming AB's coach said that he values seeing players stand up in the big games, well, DMAC and Stevenson would do no harm to their chances if they both put in big shifts this week. A quality contest in the midfield where none of these players would look out of place in a black jersey. I'm going the home side by 3. Brumbies versus the Rebels. Well, the men from the capital, since they dropped a game against the Blues, they've been racking up the wins despite looking like the finished article. They too look for a home semi-final after the last 2 seasons' semis in New Zealand have proved a bridge too far. The Rebels, so good last week, will be hunting at a minimum another bonus point to cement their spot in the 8. Angus Gardner controls his 115th Super Rugby game, surpassing Jaco Piper. Congratulations, Angus. Squad depth gets the job done for the Brumbies as they win at home by 6. Moana Pacifica versus the Waratahs. Darren Coleman has been stood down by New South Wales Rugby. He won't coach beyond the next 2 games. After a quality first year, they never lived up to the hype over the next 2 seasons, and injuries plagued this year's edition of the side. One of the issues for the Waratahs is they watch New South Wales grown talent performing for other sides in the comp, much like the Blues did with their region or nursery in New Zealand. Moana were excellent against a young Canes side, and if they reach the same standard, they should have too much for the Waratahs. Yet, if they're 5% off, then this game's going to be a tussle. Lotu Anisi topped their carry meters last week. He'll probably be expected to shoulder the load this week as well. For the visitors, Hannigan returns at 6 and pushes Holloway into the second row. The Tars respond for Coleman and win by 3. Crusaders versus the Blues. Christchurch fans usually pencil this date into the calendar when the Blues and Crusaders face off. I expect there'll be plenty in attendance despite the Satyrs not travelling too well. Tuamafasi, well, he's extended his contract with New Zealand Rugby and faces a duel against young powerhouse Newell, who destroyed the Brumbies scrum last week. Fergus Burke, he'll be better with a game under his belt, and his clash with Plummer could decide the outcome of this game. Sotutu and Talea remain the threats for the men in red and black. A rare win in Christchurch, I'm picking the Blues by 6. Reds versus the Force. After playing against each other in the preseason and then in Perth, this is the 3rd time these teams face off. The Reds, they'll be looking for a get square at home. The Reds have named their 2 AB's bookends in the front row, whilst McDermott and Liner will be tasked with steering the side around. Last week, the Force went early to the boots of Donaldson and Beale as they looked to play outside of their 22. Expect the same at Suncorp. I'm going the home side to extinguish the Force's finals hopes by 14. Highlanders versus Fijian and Drua. Even though Forsyth Bar has a roof, it's still going to be bloody cold in the stadium. And Indurua's away record doesn't give me hope that they're going to find a win on the road this week. One shining light for the Fijians is the return of Caleb Muntz, who comes back after he injured himself on national duties against England, hence missing the World Cup. The Landers, while they need to respond after last week's horrendous second half at Eden Park, and with the return of Billy Harmon, Coach Dermody will be hoping that this stops the rot. Landers by 7. If you're finding these insights helpful, consider pressing the subscribe button and hitting that bell for more insights every week. Well, the penultimate round of the regular season this week, plenty for teams to play for. Top 4 teams really jostling, fighting to secure home quarter and home semi at a minimum, whilst the middle 4 tier teams, they're looking to ensure that they remain in the finals race. I'm Coach H, and you've been watching Inspired by Union.